All right, let's dive into a core skill of any top-tier project manager, the work breakdown structure. And look, this is way more than just making a to-do list. We're talking about the strategic blueprint for turning a big, ambitious idea into a real, tangible plan you can actually execute.
You know how it is. Every big project, doesn't matter if it's launching a new app or building a skyscraper, it starts out as this massive, kind of overwhelming idea. The finish line seems miles away, and the path is just foggy. You're worried about scope creep, budgets spiraling out of control. So the big question is, how do you actually wrestle that chaos into submission? How do you get control?
Well, the answer is you break it down. Simple as that. But wait, not just randomly chopping it up. You have to do it systematically, strategically. And luckily, there's a killer technique for this, one that's backed by the project management body of knowledge, the PM book guide. It's the ultimate framework for getting things done.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll start with why this is even a problem, then get into the nitty-gritty of the WBS process. After that, we'll cover what you need to get started, the key technique of decomposition, how to build your official scope baseline, and finally, we'll see how it all works in the real world.
All right, Section 1. Let's really nail down the problem we're trying to solve here.
Look, here's the bottom line. Without a crystal clear framework that everyone on the team understands and agrees to, your project is basically flying blind. It's just a matter of time before you hit scope creep, budget issues, or blown deadlines. And that's exactly what the Create WBS process is designed to prevent. It's not a list, it's your project's GPS, a visual map that shows every single thing that needs to get done.
Okay, next up, let's talk terminology. To build a great WBS, we've got to speak the same language.
So, what exactly is a work breakdown structure, or WBS? Think of it as a family tree for your project. It's a visual chart that takes the entire scope of your project and breaks it down, layer by layer, into smaller, much more manageable pieces. It's all about organizing the total scope of work, plain and simple. Okay, so you're breaking things down, but how far do you go? Where do you stop? You stop at something called the work package. This is the very bottom level of your WBS. These are the actual, tangible pieces of work where you can finally estimate how long it'll take and how much it'll cost. They're the fundamental building blocks of your entire project.
Now, one level up from those work packages, you have control accounts. Think of these as folders. You group a bunch of related work packages into a control account. Why? Because it's a perfect checkpoint for management. It's where you can bundle together the scope, budget, and schedule to see how you're performing. This is where all that fancy earned value management stuff happens.
Okay, concepts are down. Now, before we can actually start building this thing, we need to gather our raw materials, or as the PMBOK guide calls them, our inputs.
So, you've got 4 main buckets of inputs. First, your project management plan, specifically the part about scope. That's your rulebook. Second, your project documents. The scope statement, the requirements doc, that's the what. It tells you what you're building. Third, you've got external stuff like industry standards. And fourth, and this one's huge, is your company's own history. Old project files, templates, lessons learned, that's your secret weapon.
And I really want to double-click on that last one. The PMBOK guide is basically screaming at you, don't reinvent the wheel. Seriously, use your organization's past projects. Dig up those old files and templates. It's not just a shortcut. It's how you avoid making the same mistakes twice. It's a massive accelerator.
Okay, inputs are gathered. Now for the fun part. Let's fire up the engine of this whole process. We're talking about the core technique, the real how-to behind the WBS. It's called decomposition.
So decomposition isn't just taking a sledgehammer to your project. It's more like surgery. It's a methodical 5-step dance. First, you identify your big-ticket deliverables. Second, you figure out the overall structure. Third, you actually do the breakdown level by level. Fourth, and this is super important, you give every piece a unique ID code so you can track it. And last, you do a sanity check. Do we break it down enough, but not too much?
Let's make this real. We'll use a classic example from the PMBOK guide. So at the very top, level 1, you've got the whole shebang, the Value Management System project. That's 1.0. It's everything.
Now we crack open that top level. At level 2, we see the first major breakdown. The project is split into big chunks, like needs assessment, standards development, systems engineering, and yep, even project management itself. You got to manage the work, right? So that's part of the work. And we just keep going. You take a piece like needs assessment, and break that down into current system audit and requirements determination. Then you take current system audit and break that down again all the way to components identification and components analysis. And boom, those little pieces at the bottom, those are your work packages. Specific, manageable, and something you can actually put a number on.
Now, there is one golden rule you absolutely cannot break here. It's called the 100% rule. It's simple. Your WBS has to include all the work required for the project and nothing extra. The work in the child boxes has to add up to exactly 100% of the work in the parent box above it. No more, no less. For any of my fellow consultants out there, you'll recognize this immediately. It's the MECE principle in action. Mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive.
Okay, but what if your project is a monster? I mean, it stretches out for years. You can't possibly know all the tiny details for work that's happening way down the road. And that's okay. The PMBOK guide has a smart technique for this called rolling wave planning. The idea is simple. You plan the stuff that's happening soon in super fine detail, right down to the work package. But for the work that's way off in the future, you just keep it at a higher level for now. You'll break it down later as you get closer and the details become clearer.
All right, so we've done all this work. What's the payoff? What do we actually get out of it? Well, this isn't just some theoretical exercise. The output is incredibly powerful. It's basically the constitution for your project's scope.
The main thing you create is called the scope baseline. This is it, the official, approved version of your project scope. This is the yardstick you'll measure everything against. And it's made up of 3 key things: the project scope statement, the WBS itself, and a super important sidekick called the WBS dictionary.
So if the WBS is the skeleton, the WBS dictionary is all the muscle and tissue that makes it work. It's a separate document that gives you the juicy details for every single item in the WBS. We're talking ID codes, a full description of the work, who's responsible, what resources you need, cost estimates, and maybe most importantly, how you'll know when it's done right, the acceptance criteria. This is what brings the WBS to life.
So now we know all the pieces. Let's look at a few ways you can put them together. Because here's the thing. There's no single right way to structure a WBS. It all depends on your project.
You'll see 2 main flavors out there pretty often. The first is a phase-based WBS. This is where you organize the work by time. Planning, then design, then build, then test. It's chronological. The other popular one is deliverable-based. Here, you organize the work around the actual things you're building, like the air vehicle or the support equipment. One is great for tracking a schedule, the other's great for focusing on the final product.
So let's bring it all home. We've gone from this big, messy problem of complexity all the way down to a detailed, actionable plan. The whole point of creating a WBS is to systematically turn that initial fog of, what are we doing, into a crystal clear roadmap. You gather your info, you break down the work, you document it all, and bam, you have total control over your scope. You've built the foundation for a successful project.
Look, mastering the WBS isn't just about passing a test or managing a project. It's a way of thinking. It's a strategic framework for solving any complex problem. So the real question I'll leave you with is this. Now that you know how to do it, what big, messy problem are you going to break down and conquer first?